Europe is in a fight for a continent that is whole and at peace, for a free and independent Europe, a fight for our values and our democracies, a fight for our liberty and our ability to determine our destiny for ourselves.
The European Union, under the leadership of Ms. von der Leyen, is a burden for European states. It poses an obstacle to Poland's security. The European Commission must step down.
Ms. von der Leyen, please. I ask you here and now to resign.
Donald Trump demonstrated how to handle delusional world leaders, such as Ursula von der Leyen. He put her out the door and we should follow suit.
Ms. von der Leyen, please do Europe a favor. Resign. You are not the leader of Europe. The people own Europe, not you.
Europe deserves better. It's time to resign.
Madam President, for 6 years, von der Leyen has presented plans and using up hundreds of billions of euros that are taken from the European people. The result, Europe is weaker, poorer, less secure, less effective, and more vulnerable, and much less free now. You have failed in 3 ministries in Germany, and here you have already reached the peak of your failure. You create problems because of her pride, her inability, and her transparency issues, to say it nicely. Due to her threats towards anyone who disagrees, as she demonstrated today, while also announcing independent media financed by the Commission. All the propaganda tools she uses to obscure the subsidies that NGOs get for this ideological messaging are drowning us. The burden of the Green Pact is destroying us. The Muslim invasion initiated by Mrs. Merkel is still here, continues, and will eventually force us to fight. As Israel fights, hopefully, despite all the defamation against Israel, we Europeans will find the courage and determination to defend our civilization and our society as Israel is doing.
We need to work urgently on a new solution to finance Ukraine's war response and effort on the basis of the immobilized Russian assets. With the cash balances associated to these Russian assets, we can provide Ukraine with a reparations loan. The assets themselves will not be touched, and the risk will have to be carried collectively. Ukraine will only pay back the loan once Russia pays for the reparations.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. President von der Leyen, it's great to see you here. Last year, you fled the chamber after half an hour, much like public trust in your leadership has fled. Now, 6 in 10 Europeans want you to resign. And who can blame them? You buried Europe under a mountain of regulations and danced to the tune of the Green Left choir while industry crumbled and taxpayers bled. You came in promising unity and delivered debt and division. You claimed to defend democracy, but sidelined it with centralization. You spoke of competitiveness while pushing businesses out of Europe. And don't take my word for it, Frau von der Leyen. Ask your own party members revolting against your unrealistic 2040 climate target. They know you would destroy our industry. Colleagues, you saw a president of the European Commission taking a victory lap on a track she helped burn down. Europe deserves better. It's time to resign.
Together we have shown what is possible when we have the same ambition, unity and urgency. Putin's message is clear, and our response must be clear too. We need more pressure on Russia to come to the negotiation table. We need more sanctions. We are now working on the 19th package in coordination with partners. We're particularly looking at phasing out Russian fossil fuels faster. We're looking at the shadow fleet and at third countries. And at the same time, we need more support for Ukraine. No one has contributed as much as Europe. Close to 170 billion euros of military and financial aid so far. And more will be needed. And it should not only be European taxpayers who bear the brunt of this. This is Russia's war, and it is Russia that should pay.
Ms. von der Leyen, please. I ask you here and now to resign, not only because 2 more motions of censure await you, but especially because you are no longer credible for the dignity of the presidency. Surveys, which are official and undisputed, indicate that 60% of European citizens wish for your resignation due to the disastrous trade agreement with the United States. Moreover, 91% of citizens want full transparency regarding public expenditures, which you systematically reject. The Parliament has taken legal action against the Council, seeking to annul a funding program for Member States due to its illegal circumvention of this Parliament. The untruth concerning the rerouting of your plane's journey to Plovdiv reveals both the inadequacy and the logical shortcomings. The Trump administration, the governments of China and India, and even the Mercosur states refuse diplomatic contact with you. Your attendance as the Commission leader weakens the Union, leads to the failure of member states, erodes democracy, and impoverishes us. Please do us and yourself a favor. Go.
Europe will front-load 6 billion euros from the air alone and enter into a drone alliance with Ukraine. Ukraine has the ingenuity. What it needs now is scale. And together we can provide it so that Ukraine keeps its edge and Europe strengthens its own.
Mrs. von der Leyen, for the way you are destroying Europe, you should have been sitting in court a long time ago instead of calling for a 2 billion budget here in the European Parliament and proposing more, even worse Green Deal measures. Europe is on fire, and you are lost in discussions about utterly unrealistic visions. Because of your war and sanctions policy, people are suffering and paying record prices for energy. Thanks to your Green Deal, European firms and factories are escaping Europe. Due to your immigration policy, every week shootings happen in Europe and in Brussels. They even have to send in the army against immigrants. You have destroyed Europe, and we are just a tiny piece away from total collapse, yet you refuse to admit your mistake. The only thing you come here with is a request for stricter enforcement of the policies that have led to Europe's destruction and have failed so far. You demand even stricter punishment and censorship of all dissenters and critics. Ms. von der Leyen, please do Europe a favor. Resign. You are not the leader of Europe. The people own Europe, not you.
Von der Leyen. 12 hours, 22 minutes, millions of Europeans are now working to pay your generous salary, mine and all of yours. And you have not given them a bit of respect. Massive and uncontrolled immigration, a Green Deal that devastates the economy, censorship on social media, concealment of contracts, corruption in business, climate trade restrictions, excessive regulations, unfair competition, public debt that is out of control, and higher taxes, crime and street insecurity like never before. That is the Europe they live in out there. The increasingly weak union presides over the worst commission in history. During your campaign with Mr. Feijó in Spain, you supported the European People's Party and assured farmers, ranchers and fishermen that they would receive abundant rewards. But you have betrayed them with the Mercosur agreement, the agreement with the United States, and with a smaller cap that has more restrictions. You take the riches and leave the less fortunate behind. But I must inform you that Europe can no longer accommodate anyone else. Thank you.
Madam Chairwoman, today Russian drones violated our airspace again. And our forces, alongside NATO, defended the security of Polish airspace. The European Commission, tasked with ensuring the economic and financial security of member states, is consistently working against the interests of European citizens. Following the destruction of European industry and the safety of our borders and streets today, food security is now at risk. I mean the Mercosur deal and imports from Ukraine. Poland, my homeland, requires genuine security. Currently, it appears that your detrimental climate, energy, investment, and financial policies are causing significant issues for us. You have become more of a burden than a source of assistance for us. The European Union, under the leadership of Ms. von der Leyen, is a burden for European states. It poses an obstacle to Poland's security. The European Commission must step down. Thank you for your time.
Mercedes and Porsche's profits are down, Volkswagen is cutting 35,000 jobs, and ThyssenKrupp is stopping steel production. Madam von der Leyen, 6 years ago you proclaimed the Green Deal here. Europe must become climate neutral and combustion engines should be banned. Today you reaffirmed this. The results are clear. German industry is losing its competitiveness and we have already lost 250,000 jobs. In your second term, you have again set grand ambitions focusing on achieving victory over Russia. Your Commission has already transferred $169 billion to Kiev to a thoroughly corrupt system. Meanwhile, the coffers in Germany are empty. Shopping at the supermarket is becoming unaffordable. More and more families cannot afford their own homes. Retirees have to collect bottles. But you, Ms. von der Leyen, are requesting a staggering 2 trillion euros for your next fiscal plan. Plus, 500 billion euros in debt will be added for future crises. And yes, these crises will undoubtedly occur since your Commission is responsible for creating the very crises it claims to address. Donald Trump demonstrated how to handle delusional world leaders such as Ursula von der Leyen. He put her out the door and we should follow suit.
Madam von der Leyen, the EU has a challenge today. While great civilizations are establishing their dominance, you remain attached to your old software, as seen with the Green Pact, facilitating our departure from history. You are about to sign Mercosur while trying to avoid the states' vote again. You have recently agreed to an unjust treaty with the United States, despite the chance to meet the historical turning point we are currently facing. The new world data is clear. We are now in the age of political Caesarism, leaving behind the era of techno-bureaucracy and free trade globalization. We can no longer rely on external powers like Washington to ensure our security. The United Nations and large international organizations find themselves unable to address the ongoing conflicts effectively. We are just at the start of the migration crisis, with Nigeria having double the number of births annually, compared to all 27 of our countries put together. However, in your address, you allocate merely 1 minute to discuss immigration. This indicates a lack of awareness of these critical data points. Therefore, we ask you again to make significant changes because regrets alone do not form a policy.
My distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I would like to take a moment to encourage you to stop and reflect on the occurrences that have taken place here today. The European Union is currently in what may be one of its toughest times ever since the end of the war. We find ourselves in a situation where war is at our gates and we are exacerbating this conflict with 19 sanctions, financial aid and arms. We are in a situation where we are seemingly deliberately destroying hundreds of thousands of jobs with a Green Deal robbing families of their future. We are in a situation where we are robbing people of their freedom through chat controls and similar absurd measures. We are facing a situation where we have open borders and illegal migration is fundamentally altering this continent, making it more Arab and African. And you, Madam Commission President, come here in all seriousness and threaten 3 factions of this House that actions will be taken against us, the patriotic ones, the sovereign and the reform conservative. I would like to emphasize, and please make a note of this, that it is not those enemies of Europe who advocate for greater freedom and peace and greater rights for their national parliaments, but rather those who advocate for centralization, who are holding the continent back. People think that this is how Europe will work again, but it doesn't work that way. Thank you.